Okay, so the Last of Us Season 1 episode is now out, and throughout this video we're going to be breaking down episode 9, all the Easter eggs, hidden details, and also discussing the ending. First up though, I want to thank everyone for rocking with me the last 9 weeks, and we're sort of like Joel and Ellie a bit because I doomed the entire human race just to get a thumbs up from you. Anyway, we start off the episode with a flashback, and this features a major game cameo. Out in the woods, we join a pregnant woman running, and this is none other than Ashley Johnson. Ashley voiced Ellie in the game, and here we catch her playing her mother. So far, several big actors from the game have popped up, including Tommy's voice actor as Perry, Troy Baker as James last week, and Marlene, who shows up later on in this scene. There's also a hidden cameo at the end of the episode, and one of the nurses is played by none other than Laura Bailey. If you've played the second game, then you might recognise this as being the person behind Abby, and though she's obscured by a mask, it's confirmed in the credits. Very cool Easter egg. Now, Ellie's mother is called Anna, and she was first mentioned in The Last of Us comic American Dreams. This featured Ellie and Riley, and in it we learned a little bit about Anna and what she did before the outbreak. Anna worked as a nurse, and we know she and her lifelong friend Marlene survived together when everything went down worse than this channel's views next week. All that we learned from the backstory was that she died within a day of giving birth to Ellie, but here we see it fleshed out with her running to a farmhouse being chased by an infected person. We can see a big symbol for the Fireflies, denoting that this is a safe house, and you can also catch what I'm guessing is the Boston QZ in the background. As we know, this was controlled by Fedra, and though we don't learn why Anna's out on her own like this, it likely has something to do with the infected. Perhaps they were out on the road and then they were ambushed and Anna ended up fleeing, which could have led to this. Due to them searching out in the wild, I think that this might have been the road trip that they made in order to get the QZ, and this could be them arriving for the first time. The thing about insurgent groups like this is that Fedra could scan for the infected, but they had no way of telling who was a rebel or a Firefly. Thus, they'd still be allowed in, so potentially, this is them just travelling out of the city and then everything kicked off along the way. We know that the area surrounding Boston's full of infected too, and that's my theory on why she's out on her own like this. Hopefully they address it on the HBO post-release podcast, and if they have, then make sure you drop it in the comments below. Now, Anna locks herself in a room and then she busts out a switchblade, which becomes one of Ellie's main weapons in the main game. She manages to kill the infected, but unfortunately during this she gets bit as she gives birth. The cordyceps probably mutated during this moment, and this is why Ellie ends up being immune. In episode 1 we saw infection times, and due to the bite being on her leg, she has 12 to 24 hours left with her child. Anna names her Ellie, and after the title sequence, we jump to the night to see the Fireflies arriving. Led by Marlene, this group don't mind shining flashlights as the infected don't actually get alerted by them. This was a big thing in the game too, and you did need to turn it off when you were navigating around them. And Marlene goes upstairs to find Anna holding a knife to her neck in case she starts to turn. She hasn't breastfed her either in case she infects her, and she entrusts Marlene with her child. Also, the green jacket that she's wrapped up in is what Ellie later ends up wearing when she's older, showing that Anna also gives her the knife, and this is something that Marlene passed to her in both the show and game. They also mentioned in the American Dream comic that it belonged to Anna, and Marlene promises to look after Ellie. However, she refuses to kill Anna initially, but realizing that it's her duty, she eventually decides to. This is very much the entire point of Marlene's arc in this entry, and we see how she attempts to put the greater good above what she actually wants to do. Though she swears to protect Ellie, we see how at the end she approves the operation that will kill her and create a vaccine. The finale has all the morally grey areas that the game does, and in that when you're moving through the hospital, you find some of her voice notes talking about the situation. They're pretty long, so I don't just want to spend ages playing them, but there are 2 recorders that very much give her feelings at the time. The first is her coming back off the reveal that Ellie needs to be killed for the vaccine, and she's angry that she keeps getting tested over and over like this. The second is far more heartfelt, and it's actually addressed directly to Anna. She apologizes for breaking her promise, but says that she has to go through with it because this could save everyone. She says that Anna and her daughter will be reunited soon, and also states that she won't kill Joel because he's the only person who may understand how difficult this choice is. Like him, the pair both had to watch over Ellie, but this choice to spare Joel of course damns them all. Now there's also some really cool imagery in this moment, and Anna ends up giving birth to Ellie beneath an illustration of a tree. Trees have a neural network underground like the infected, and Ellie being born under this carries the symbolism that a network could spring from her that saves humanity. This could also be seen as the Tree of Life, and it's some really nice imagery to add into the scene. Now, you know I hate the next guy, bloody hate him, but bloody Ryan was chatting to him about the episode through the week, and he spotted that Anna sings the song The Sun Always Shines on TV by a-ha. Take On Me by the band was played at the mall, and Ellie also had one of their tapes up in her room. Take On Me is also a song that appears in part 2, and Ellie sings it at one point in the game. Now, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh. I've not really talked about this on the channel, but for about the last year or so, I've been a vegetarian. Used to love fried chicken. To miss steak was a mistake to me, but I decided to do it last year, and so far I've managed to stick to it. However, it can be difficult to find food that tastes good, but HelloFresh have made it very easy by creating an entire section on their website dedicated to vegetarian meals. I can't really cook either, might surprise you that. So I thought sticking to it would be hard, but HelloFresh have made mealtime easy by delivering delicious, simple to follow recipes filled with wholesome ingredients that show up quicker than a heavy spoilers video. What's good is that you can also mix and match things. My wife and kids, they still eat meat, but you can tailor every single box to fit dietary needs within your household. I've also been looking to lose weight the last 3 months as well, and they've made that really easy too. March is National Nutrition Month, and if you look for the dietitian win tag on their menu choices, you can get a meal for under 700 calories with a third less sodium. HelloFresh is also 70% less expensive than dining in a restaurant, and with food prices going up, it's definitely an option to keep those costs low. Plus, we've teamed up with them to bring viewers of this channel a massive 60% discount with free shipping. What? All you have to do is go to HelloFresh.com and enter the code HEAVYSpoilers60 at checkout. I've linked it as the pinned comment, it's in the description as well, you don't need to look far. Just go down, click the link, and it'll take you to HelloFresh.com and just enter HEAVYSpoilers60 at the checkout for 60% off and free shipping. What are you waiting for? Go now! Go, go, go! Thank you. Now from here we jump to the present and find Ellie coming off the back of the winter chapter. In the game, they used every season to tell a sort of self-contained story, and we had things like the Tommy and University sections in the fall before Joel's recovery took place over the winter. The final section took place in the spring, and in that they've added a couple of extra sections that we don't get here. We began with Joel and Ellie out on a highway, and the former was the one doing all the talking for once. This is where we begin, and we even have the camper van that you go into in the game and get supplies from. Similar to that, Joel's found stuff inside of it, and he tries to shake Ellie out of the deep feelings that she has. In the game, she was very much realizing that she was at the end of the road, and that things here were almost over. It is important to bear in mind that Ellie actually wanted to go through with everything, even if it meant her death in the end. This is why Joel lies to her, as you know she wanted her life to mean something, which is a line that she also drops in part 2. Now, I'll not spoil too much of that, but little things that help to betray her thoughts I think are important to bring up. Anyway, on the highway, Ellie also notices an advert for a plane, which the show sort of touched upon when they came across a downed one in episode 3. Ellie said that she'd had a dream where she was on one, and after going to the cockpit, she realised no one was flying it. To me, this symbolised her realising that no one actually had a clue what they were doing, and that the adults she entrusted all along were as directionless as she was. When you're a kid growing up, you think older people have everything together, but when you become one, you realise they've got no idea either. Ellie believed that people like Marlene and Joel would lead her and deal with things, but this episode shows that they're driven by instinct and their own desires. Now, whereas we find Ellie sitting on the back of a truck, the game had her zoning out to an engraving of a deer. This was clearly her remembering all the things that happened for her to meet David, and it calls back to the one that she hunted during the winter. Ellie's also wearing a red shirt at this point, with Joel donning a greyish denim one, which are what both characters wore at this point in the game. And from here, you move through an abandoned quarantine camp that was set up on the early days of the outbreak before going into an underground tunnel. This was full of infected, including runners, clickers, and 2 bloaters. Little trick for you though, if you sneak through and just stealth it, you can actually avoid fighting all of them, and you just get to the end with Ellie and it's all gravy, baby. Anyway, from here the pair made their way deeper underground, and they came across a tunnel which had a burst pipe allowing water to seep in. When trying to navigate over a bus, this sprung free, and Joel was trapped in it as it was carried along with the water. Ellie saved him, but the pair almost ended up drowning, and with her passed out, Joel had to swim through. He managed to make it through to the surface, which is where he tried to resuscitate her, and it's at this point that the Fireflies showed up. In the show, they pop up just out of the blue, but we'll talk about that more as we get up to that bit in the story. Anyway, back to the episode, and we see Joel messing about with a backpack on the ground, similar to what you do in the games when you're crafting and checking supplies. Honestly, I think they really recapture the opening of the chapter here, with the highway perfectly mirroring how it is in the game. Now we also get a mention of Joel teaching Ellie the guitar in both the show and game.
They had a guitar in that RV.
You feel that breeze, huh? I tell you, on a day like this, I just sit on my porch, pick away at my six string.
It's all smashed up, but got me thinking, maybe I should find one. I haven't played in forever.
Yeah, once we're done with this whole thing, I'm gonna teach you how to play guitar.
In fact, I was thinking maybe I could teach you. I bet you'd be great at it.
I reckon you'd really like that. What do you say, huh?
You want to learn how to play guitar?
We'll talk more in the super spoiler section about how this plays into part 2, but it's important to show how Joel's regaining his humanity. He was completely shut off from the world, but now he's becoming a parent once more, and showing interest in picking up a guitar again, and showing Ellie his hobbies. You also see a sign for Salt Lake City, and this was the location that appeared on the map in the university. You really see the pair's relationship flourishing in these moments, with Ellie predicting beat for beat about what they're going to do to scout the area. It's a great moment between Mando and Grogu, and here we head indoors before we get into the giraffe scene. In the game, you ended up going into the Logan James bus station terminal, which I always thought was a reference to Wolverine, as his full name's Logan James Howlett. If you're from Salt Lake though, and I'm sound like a moron, then make sure you call me a stupid idiot in the comments and be like, no, it's a real place and it's not named after Wolverine. Anyway, they spot a ladder and Joel suggests boosting Ellie up in order to grab it. This is a mechanic that happens in the game, and you'd often throw Ellie up places so that she could drop one down. Now this was something that you'd gone through time and time again, but they changed up the dynamics by having Ellie drop the ladder like what happens in the show.
Oh my god.
Whoa!
Joel goes up like 4 flights of steps. I'm not sure how long this giraffe's neck is, but this moment is ripped right out of the game.
You see this? Shh, don't scare it.
I won't.
What are you doing?
It's all right. Come here.
Don't scare it.
I won't.
What are you doing?
It's all right.
Hey, fella. Hurry up, come on.
Can you hurry up? Come on.
Hey there. Hey there. So fucking cool. Oh, where's it off to?
So fucking cool. Oh, where's she going? Come on.
Here, come on, let's go.
Slow down, kiddo.
Now that was done to show that there was still beauty in the world, even though everything had come tumbling down. Though humanity might be on its last legs, the rest of the animals that live on the planet had continued to thrive. Giraffes in the show and game carry a lot of symbolism with them too, and they're very much meant to represent innocence. Sarah had a giraffe toy in her room, the characters passed one in episode 2, there was one up in the kids' room in episode 6, and they popped up throughout both mediums at several points. In spirituality, a giraffe's also a symbol of grace, and overall they represent patience. In the game, this was you taking a breather for the first time in a long while, and here you just looked over the herd and had a moment to relax. Now from here they go to a different part of the roof, and we get a scene-for-scene recreation of what happens in the game.
So, is this everything you were hoping for?
So, is it everything you hoped for?
It's got its ups and downs.
It's got its ups and downs.
Can't deny the view, though.
You can't deny that view.
Is it everything you hoped for?
So is that everything you hoped for?
Jury's still out.
Jury's still out. But man, you can't deny that view.
But man, you can't deny that view.
We don't have to do this. You know that, right?
We don't have to do this. I want you to know that.
What's the other option?
Go back to Tommy's. Just be done with this whole damn thing.
What do you mean? What else are we supposed to do?
Nothing. We just go back to Tommy's. We forget about the whole damn thing.
After all we've been through.
After all we've been through.
Everything that I've done.
Everything I've done.
It can't be for nothing.
It can't be for nothing.
Now, Joel offering Ellie a chance to go to Tommy is not really the thing that he wants for her, it's what he wants for him. He knows that once he drops her off at the Fireflies, that the relationship's no more, and he's gonna have to go back to Jackson whilst she stays with them. This is his chance to become a father again, so he's giving her this option, but he ends up making the choice anyway at the end when he goes full Rambo on everyone. Ellie also says,
Sheep ranch. The moon.
and this is something that he brought up around the campfire in episode 6. This was the future that he wanted for himself, and we'll talk about how this plays in a part 2 during the spoiler section later on. Spoilers. Heavy spoilers, you bitch! Anyway, Ellie wants to go through and finish what they started, which takes them to a makeshift QZ camp. This too is ripped right out of the PlayStation Classic, though we do get 2 very different emotional moments playing out in both. Both center around Sarah, and in both the show and game, we get Joel explaining what exactly happened. In the series he says it wasn't Fedra, whereas in the game it was. Anyway, here's how the explanations differ slightly.
Is this a Fedra thing?
No. Army.
Well, this place takes me back.
How so?
That was right after everything went down. I ended up in a triage just like this.
They put these places up all around. The first few days after the outbreak.
And everywhere you looked, you just saw families torn apart. Whole damn world seemed to have turned upside down in a blink.
They had me in one just like this.
With Sarah?
No, she was gone already.
Was that after you lost Sarah?
Yes, it was.
I can't imagine losing someone you love like that. Losing everything that you know. I'm sorry, Joel.
Anyway, in the game at this moment, Ellie ended up handing over a photo of Sarah to Joel. Back with Tommy, he tried to do the same thing, and we learned that he'd returned to Texas and had stopped by their old house, which is where he found it. Joel refused to look at it or acknowledge it, and it showed how much of a closed book that he now was. Ellie revealed that she'd stolen it from Tommy though, and here she attempted to give it back to him. He ended up accepting that he couldn't outrun his past, and it showed that he'd finally moved on from feeling nothing but constant grief and pain. In the show though, he talks about almost ending his own life, and he reveals the scar on his head was self-inflicted. Now this scar was something Ellie asked about on the road all the way back in episode 3. Joel said that someone shot at him and missed, and I wrongly assumed that this scar was from when the soldier shot at him and Sarah. Joel said that he wasn't scared and that he was ready to do it, and in the game the character actually discussed people that take their own lives. They came across someone, and Ellie says that they took the easy way out, whereas Joel said that it was never easy. Yeah, he goes further into it and says that he wasn't scared and in fact he was ready. He just hadn't seen the point in living anymore when Sarah died, but he flinched when pulling the trigger and he still doesn't know why. When we look at it, he lived the next 20 years with nothing really to live for, and that was all until Ellie came along. The ending shows that he simply can't go through that again, and he doesn't care who he has to kill to spare himself of that pain. He's also seen the worst in humanity, and the argument is definitely there whether it's worth sparing one good person for us, like The Last of Us if you imagine. Nihilists could say that humanity deserved what happened to them, and Joel very much represents the Riley mind state of wanting to spend whatever time he has left with the person he cares about. Ellie then says time heals all wounds, but he says it wasn't that did it. Ellie has saved him, and in return he does what he sees as saving her, and thus saving himself. It's kind of pick your poison on what version you prefer over this or the game, and you know I'm a die-hard fan of the latter, but I actually think that it worked better in the show. Now the mood is then lightened by some puns.
People are making apocalypse jokes like there's no tomorrow.
People are making apocalypse jokes like there's no tomorrow. Too soon.
Too soon?
No, it's topical.
A moon rock tastes better than an earthly rock.
Oh, I love this one. Moon rocks taste better than Earth rocks. Why?
Because it's meteor.
Because they're meteor.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh,
That's
fuck
a-
you.
that-
That was actually good.
That's a...
What did the green grape say to the purple grape? Breathe, you idiot.
That's so stupid.
What did the green grape say to the purple grape? Breathe, you idiot.
However, the fun is spoiled by a Firefly flashbang. Might not be a flashbang, I'm not a weapons expert, and every time I get it wrong, people kick off. So yeah, if it's not, call me an idiot in the comments below and make sure you get those comments up. Anyway, in a scene that's reminiscent of Sarah waking up in episode 1, we cut to some blinds flapping back and forth before we find Joel in a hospital bed. Windows are very important in The Last of Us, and one was used on the menu screen, with a similar setup for this being used at the end of episode 3. Joel initially believes that he sees blood, but this then forms into a firefly shape, foreshadowing what's to come. Now from here we get a scene that riffs on the game, with Joel and Marlene talking.
Welcome to the Fireflies.
Welcome to the Fireflies. Sorry about that. They didn't know who you were.
You got hit pretty hard. Patrol didn't know who you were.
And Ellie?
She's all right. They brought her back.
Where's Ellie?
She wasn't hurt. Not even a scratch. She's mostly worried about you.
You came all this way. How'd you do it?
I had 5 men whose only job was to protect me. I still almost got killed. How'd you do it?
It was her. She fought like hell to get here.
It was all her. She fought like hell to get here.
She would have been dead on day 1.
Maybe it was meant to be.
I lost most of my crew crossing the country. I pretty much lost everything.
We lost half our crew crossing the country. But I owe you. We all owe you.
Just take me to her.
You don't have to worry about her anymore. We'll take care
I
of her.
worry. Just let me see her, please.
I can't. She's being prepped for surgery.
You can't. She's being prepped for surgery.
What surgery?
The hell you mean, surgery?
The doctors tell me the cordyceps, the growth inside her, has somehow mutated.
Our doctor, he thinks that the cordyceps in Ellie has grown with her since birth.
It's why she's immune. Once they remove it, they'll be able to reverse engineer a vaccine.
It makes normal cordyceps think that she's cordyceps. It's why she's immune.
A vaccine.
But it grows all over the brain.
Cordyceps grows inside the brain.
It does.
It does.
Find someone else.
There is no one else.
Listen, you were gonna show me where
Find someone else.
There is no one else.
Take me to her. You take me to her right now!
Stop. I get it.
Please, you don't understand.
I do.
But whatever it is you think you're going through right now is nothing to what I have been through.
I was there when she was born, Joel. Promised her mother that I would save her child. I promised.
I knew her since she was born. I promised her mother I would look after her.
Then why are you letting this happen?
Because this isn't about me.
So I do understand. I'm the only one who understands.
There is no other choice here.
I have no other choice.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that bullshit.
March him out of here. He tries anything, shoot him.
Walk him out to the highway, leave him there with his pack. If he tries anything, shoot him.
They also add in some extra lines of dialogue explaining how and why Ellie is immune. As we learn in episode 2, the cordyceps work almost like a hive mind, with there being vast wires of them underground. This very much extends to how they work with the immunity too, and they see her cordyceps as normal, so they don't attack or multiply. These chemical messengers being replicated could end up being a cure, and thus Marlene sees Ellie as a ray of light. Now there are certain things that come with this, and if you're ever getting to talking about whether Joel was right or wrong, You'll run into people who say the vaccine wouldn't have worked anyway, and that there was a chance it could fail. There's definitely that possibility too, though the second game does make it way clearer. Either way, the Fireflies having this cure could have completely shifted the power balance on the planet, and they would very much become the rulers of Earth, deciding who got immunity and who didn't. They're as cruel as the rest of the groups we've encountered, and as we know, they completely hate Fedra. They're also complete f***heads, and who knows whether they'd even be able to replicate it at scale. I think whenever I've played through this section on the game as well, I've always thought that the big thing Marlene didn't do that she should have is let Joel and Ellie say their goodbyes. As soon as she got into the hospital, she was pretty much scanned and rushed to surgery, and there wasn't that chance where Joel could make his peace with what was happening. They wanted the cure as soon as possible, and whether that's to gain power or save people, I'll leave that up to you to decide. Now, Marlene says that she was there when she was born, but she's very much sacrificing her inner feelings to do what she sees as being best for the planet. What I love about the ending is that there's no right or wrong answer, and you can fully see Joel as being the bad guy. Had people not played as him or watched him in the show, then I think that would definitely be the case too. On paper, this is a man who stormed a hospital and used it as a shooting gallery so that he could kidnap a girl and lie to her about what happened. These aren't the hallmarks of a hero, but I can also see why people don't like Marlene either. Had Joel let them do it, they could have held the world to ransom, and though I don't think stopping them from doing that was his intention, there are questions to be asked. Now, in addition for the show, Marlene instructs her guards to give him Ellie's switchblade, and this carries a lot of significance. Anna gave it to Marlene at the beginning, and I very much view this as her trying to get rid of the girl she's going to carry every time she looks at it. This item brought with it a promise that Marlene's gone back on, and her giving it to Joel very much reminds him of what he's fighting for. Now, she did try her best, to be fair, and she even enrolled Ellie in Fedra so that she'd be far away from the Fireflies. Still though, her immunity brought them together. Marlene now sees Ellie as being a hope for humanity. The blade is of course so he can survive, but Joel's gonna too remember her every time he looks at it as well. We get an added shot that also wasn't in the source material, with a tear rolling down Marlene's face to show how difficult this was. Now, it is also possible that she suspected Ellie was immune due to the birth, and this is why she wasn't immediately shot when she revealed she was infected. We don't really find out how Ellie ended up with the Fireflies, but it's possible that she went directly to Marlene after hearing about her from Riley. Now, in the game, Joel was taken out by one guard in this scene, however, here he's escorted by two, but he still manages to get the upper hand. He stops at a sign before he hits the stairwell, and this is so he can see what floor she's on, and then makes his move by killing them both. Such a good moment, and he interrogates the guard like what we get here.
What the fuck are you doing? Keep walking.
The fuck are you doing? Keep walking. I said keep walking.
I said keep walking. Where is the operating room?
Where is she?
I ain't got time for this.
Where? Fuck you. I don't have time for this.
Where? Top floor, the far end.
Now he takes his knife back along with his backpack and switches into cold Terminator mode. We talked about this last week with the interrogation scene there, and how when Ellie's in danger he won't stop at anything to save her. There's no line he won't cross, no one he won't kill, and he mercilessly moves through the halls, firing at people even if they surrender. This bit was so intense in the game too, when you pretty much just worked your way through the hospital, killing everyone that you came across. I really think it's a beautiful montage, even if it's horrific. I got goosebumps seeing this play out here. Similar to the game, you eventually hit the children's ward, and you can catch the paintings that they had on the wall, which are perfectly recaptured in the show. You also have rooms off to the side, and this is where you'd find the recorders and so on. Like in the game, Joel steps through the main door, and he then sees Ellie about to be operated on.
I won't let you take her. I won't let you take her.
Now this character becomes very important later on, and we do get some focus on him as Joel leaves carrying Ellie. He leaves the nurses alive, and hey, you're a better man than me, Joel, because I was smashing them like the like button.
Ha!
Now he ends up getting to the elevator, and in the game he's chased by soldiers, but I think it makes more sense to have him just make his escape without them breathing down his neck. It's very much done in the game to keep up the tension, whereas here he's clearly internally struggling with what's going on. Now, the ending of The Last of Us is something that stuck with me since I first played the game back in 2013. Killing doctors like this is clearly crossing the line, but you could see things from Joel's point of view as he'd been playing as him for the last 10 hours or so. As Joel leaves, he carries Ellie out, and this is symbolic for a number of reasons. It's exactly the same as how he carried Sarah at the start of the series, and Ellie very much represents the daughter that he lost. He also gets put in a similar situation to how he was with Sarah at the beginning. Whereas we had a soldier standing with a gun drawn ready to shoot them, we see that Marlene now stands between him and the life that he should have. Marlene tries to talk him out of it, and she says that if Ellie doesn't die for something like this, then she'll no doubt die for nothing because of the way the world is. The infected could tear her apart, raiders could kill her, and we've seen throughout the season how many threats lie around each corner. Joel says it's not up for Marlene to decide, but that's very much the case with Joel as well. However, Marlene correctly says that they both know what Ellie would do, which is confirmed later on in the story by the character herself. Now, just like in the game, we get the resolution of the scene playing alongside Joel and Ellie driving out of the area. Let's play these scenes together so you can see how they compare.
You can't keep her safe forever.
You can't save her. Even if you get her out of here, then what?
How long till she's torn apart by infected or murdered by raiders?
How long before she's torn to pieces by a pack of clickers? That is, if she hasn't been raped and murdered first.
Maybe. But it isn't for you to decide.
Or you.
It ain't for you to decide.
It's what she'd want. And you know it.
So what would she decide, huh? Because I think she'd want to do what's right.
Look. You can still do the right thing here.
Even after what you've done, we can still find a way.
She won't feel anything.
What the hell am I wearing?
Just take it easy. Drugs are still wearing off.
All right, you're with me. Take it slow. The drugs are still wearing off.
What happened?
We found the Fireflies.
I was with the Fireflies, and then
Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie.
Turns out there's a whole lot more like you. People that are immune.
People that are immune. There's dozens, actually. Ain't done 'em a damn bit of good, neither.
Dozens of them. The doctors, they couldn't make any of it work.
They've actually... They've stopped looking for a cure.
They've actually... They've stopped looking for a cure.
I'm taking us home.
Raiders attacked the hospital. I barely got you out of there.
Wait!
Oh, no, wait.
Let me go.
Let me go.
Please.
You just come after her.
You just come after her.
Now, an important addition here is a line about raiders attacking the hospital. I always wondered why Ellie didn't question why they got out of there so quickly without saying goodbye, but this line helps to add why they had to leave straight away. It also means that if they go back there, they can see the bodies, and this lines up with the idea that they were attacked by an unknown group.
Yes.
I don't know if they wanted money or they wanted something more sexual.
Wow.
But it's a lucky thing
I had my pieces.
Your pieces.
My guns.
Oh.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang!
Wow.
Bang! Well, I don't see so good, so I missed. Then they ran away. Anyway, you guys all think I'm a hero, and I'll accept that responsibility.
We see Joel mercilessly shooting Marlene, and her wound is a repeat of the last time with her getting hit in the side. This shows just how far Joel is willing to go, and she's meant to be a sympathetic figure in this moment. She's clearly badly wounded, but Joel isn't willing to take any chances, and he kills her because there's a chance she'll still come for Ellie again. Marlene has very much given up her humanity in deciding to sacrifice Ellie for the vaccine, whereas Joel has found his once more through regaining a daughter. Now the car breaks down by the side of the road, and we get a similar thing to what happens in the game. Ellie looks at her bite mark, and she very much views this as the thing that was driving her, but now it no longer really serves a purpose beyond protecting her from getting infected. Joel says they have a 5-hour hike ahead of them, which they joke about managing, and this is a callback to episode 3. They also discussed having a 5-hour hike then too, and like the game at this point, he starts to talk about Sarah and how the pair would have been friends.
Don't think I ever told you, but Sarah and I used to take hikes like this.
Well, Sarah and I used to hike like this all the time.
I think the two of you would have been good friends. I think you really would have liked it.
Anyway, I bet you would have liked her back.
Now we can see conflict within Ellie, and she's clearly weighing up whether to question Joel as he spouts off stories about his daughter. Just like the game, they arrive overlooking Jackson, but here we see it carries the updated design from part 2 with a giant wall surrounding it. The pair look over it, and we get Ellie asking the question in a scene that's pulled right out of the game.
Not much further now.
Just a little bit further now.
Hey, wait.
Hey, wait.
Back in Kansas City, you asked me about the first time I killed someone.
Back in Boston? Back when I was bitten? I wasn't alone.
When I got bit in the mall, I wasn't on my own. My best friend was there.
My best friend was there.
And she got bit too.
And she got bit too.
We didn't know what to do, and she says, we can just wait it out, be all poetic, and just lose our minds together.
We didn't know what to do. So... she says... let's just wait it out. You know, we can be all poetic and just lose our minds together.
And then she did. And I had to.
I'm still waiting for my turn.
Ellie.
Her name was Riley, and she was the first to die.
Her name was Riley. And she was the first to die.
And then it was Tess. And then Sam.
And then it was Tess. And then Sam.
That's not on you.
I know it.
None of that is on you.
You don't understand.
I struggled for a long time with surviving.
But if you just keep going, you find something new to fight for. And maybe that's not what you
Swear
want.
to me.
And you... no matter what, you keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me.
Swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true.
Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
I swear.
Okay.
Okay?
This of course goes over Riley, and the line about losing their minds together is a reference to this.
We could just be all poetic and shit and lose our minds together.
It also cements the survivor's guilt that Ellie feels, which is reoccurring here once more. Ellie is once more living whilst people are dying that she could have helped, and she bears the burden of it. She's very much wanting to know that there isn't another side to it, and that all the deaths meant something. Riley, Tess, Henry and Sam all died so that she could get to the hospital, but their lives were very much wasted in her eyes because of Joel's actions. He swears that everything he said was the truth, and Ellie pauses and then says okay. This is a line that's always stuck with me, as she's not really saying whether she believes it or not, she's just saying okay, I will accept that version of events. Rather than contesting it or asking further questions, she's happy to live in this reality where her father figure isn't a monster. In her mind, she's going along with it that he tried his best to get her to the Fireflies, but Raiders attacked and it didn't work out. Now, did he do the right thing? Well, that's definitely up for debate, but deep down he knows that it's not what Ellie wanted, which is cemented by the fact that he has to lie to her. Had it been what Ellie was really after, then he wouldn't have hid the truth, and he doesn't want to seem like a selfish monster in his new daughter's eyes. He wants to be the father figure in her life that she's been craving all along, and he knows that telling the truth will completely shatter this illusion. Now this works both ways as well, with Ellie not so much believing the lie, but she accepts it. Since playing the first game, I've always referred to it as being the godfather of gaming, and that's mainly down to how the ending plays out. In that seminal film, Michael's girlfriend Kay arrives at his home, and his sister bursts in and accuses him of murdering her husband. Michael denies all this, and this is because he's attempting to retain the idea in Kay's mind that he's a good man who isn't like the rest of the family. However, we end with the mobsters coming and clearly treating Michael like a mafia head, and the door is then shut on her as she realizes the truth deep down. That's very much the case with Ellie too, and she's now going on to a new life in Jackson with Joel, believing that he's not someone who's just doomed to humanity. Now you can totally see things from Joel's side too, and I think that had anyone else been given Ellie, then we likely would have had a different ending. Marlene and the rest of the Fireflies were happy to sacrifice her, but the fact that Joel was someone who never got over his daughter makes him the worst person to be escorting her. He sees the similarities and eventually comes to believe that Ellie is very much his daughter, which is cemented by certain things that he does. He calls her baby girl at the end of episode 8, and this is a nickname that he also used with Sarah. Joel also glances at his watch at several points, and these all happen in moments in which he sees similarities in them. Ellie just playing soccer with Sam causes him to do it, and it's laced throughout lots of aspects of the show. They did remove the moment from the scene at the end in which he does it too, but it's an important thing to bear in mind as it was there originally. Joel needs to find a reason to live, and it's also cemented by the fact that you find something to survive for. When he lost Sarah, he wanted to give up and attempted to end his own life. However, he must have had hope deep down that things would work out, which is why he flinched. He's now found the thing to make him whole again, and he'll do whatever he can to keep Ellie at his side, even if it dooms The Last of Us. It's a chilling way to close out the season, and I'm so glad that they kept the scenes the same. It was perfect the first time I saw it, and I still think that it's perfect now. Now that closes out the episode, and for the next part of the video, we're going to be talking about the consequences of this and what it leads to in Season 2. Well, Part 2, but it's probably going to be Season 2. So there are major spoilers here, and with the first season following the game so closely, I can imagine that Season 2 will follow the second game pretty closely as well. So if you don't want to know what happens, then I highly recommend you turn off now. Heavy spoilers ahead, and I mean heavy spoilers. Like, people will be mad. Are you still here? Okay, right, well, let's get into the super spoiler section. You can't get mad, you promised you wouldn't. Right, so the first thing that we need to talk about is the fact that Joel dies early on in the second game. He's killed by Abby, who we discover was the daughter of the doctor that Joel kills in order to take Ellie. We learn that for years Abby trained her body to peak perfection so that she could track down Joel and get vengeance. This happens as well, and along with a group of people, she heads out from Seattle to Jackson. Joel saves her from a horde of the infected, but she still ends up killing him, which is what sets Ellie off on a quest to avenge him. That's pretty much the plot of the second game without getting too much into spoilers. But yeah, Pedro Pascal might not be along long in the second season. Anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is the line about the guitar in the RV. Part 2 opens on Joel holding it, and this is a very important item that reoccurs throughout. We know that in between this part and Part 2 that Ellie learns to play it, and she picks it up and strums away at several points in the game. The ending of it very much centers around it, and after failing to kill Abby and being let go, Ellie ends up living on a ranch with her girlfriend Dina and also her son. This is a sheep farm like what Joel said he wanted in the season, and with this added context, it's very much Ellie living Joel's dream. We also get references to the moon comment with a flashback showing Joel taking Ellie to a museum for her birthday. They end up sitting inside a shuttle in pod, and with a helmet and headphones on, Ellie imagines going through liftoff. Now back to the guitar, and after Ellie experiences constant PTSD flashbacks, she ends up leaving to hunt Abby down after Tommy tells her where she was spotted. Ellie ends up finding her in Santa Barbara completely disheveled after being captured by a group of slavers known as the Rattlers. She ends up saving her, but as she goes to sail off, Ellie once more gets a PTSD flashback and she forces Abby to fight her. During this fight, Abby bites off her fingers, and though Ellie gets the upper hand, she decides to let her go. This is because she remembers Joel, and she learns that she could forgive him, and thus forgives Abby too. Anyway, people kick off about it. Now, Ellie returns home to find that Dina has left, but that she's left her some of her belongings, including Joel's guitar. Ellie starts to strum this, and she attempts to play Future Days by Pearl Jam, which is the song that Joel played to her at the start of the game. Because of her missing fingers, she's unable to do this, and she very much lost everything, including a piece of Joel, in this quest for revenge. Now that closes out the game, and we get an open window similar to how the scene with Sarah started in Season 1. I also imagine that the hospital scene will return, but we'll get this from a new perspective like what we did in the game. Abby rushed in to find her father dead in the wake of Joel's rampage, and I was actually surprised that they didn't at least hint to her in the final episode. I still think Season 2 will play out like how it did in the game, but maybe they just didn't have her cast yet, or maybe they just didn't want to have the conversation around the finale being a very, very controversial one. Because Abby's a very controversial figure. The face model for her still gets sent hate mail and stuff, and yeah, people are going to be very mad, I think. Anyway, that's all the spoiler Easter eggs in the entry. Now with The Last of Us first season wrapping up, I thought I'd give my final thoughts on it as a whole. If you're asking whether I think the game is show's best, then I have to go with the former. I think the game is probably going to remain my favourite of all time for most of my life, and I thought it would be pretty difficult for the series to top this. However, the series started off really strong, and after those first 3 episodes, it crossed my mind a number of times that I actually thought that this was better than the game. The characterization, changes, cast, action scenes and drama worked really well, leading it to being such a strong start. However, I do feel as we got into the latter parts of the season that the formula became very clear, and every episode sort of slotted into us meeting a new character, having an adventure with them, and then watching them die. Happened across the board, and I think that the latter episodes sort of lost their variety. Though I enjoyed episodes 6 and 7, I think putting them back to back made it feel like the story was dragging a lot, and if you compare things to how those moments are handled in the game, there's a lot more variety. They broke things up with the infected and raiders attacking, whereas outside of the ones that popped up at the end of each episode, you didn't really have those dynamics. There's so many stellar infected scenes as well that didn't make the cut in the series, which I think is a shame because the clicker moments in episode 2 are handled so well. I wanted to see this translated to things like the hotel basement, the tripwire trap as they arrive at Bill's, the sewer escape, and pretty much every section of the game. In every episode, the thing they tended to cut was the infected moments, and I think that's probably going to be a turn-off for general audiences who are sold on this being a big post-apocalypse show. There's probably people who've just seen the series that think, the game, it's probably going to be boring, but trust me, if you pick up and play that, you'll understand how much was missing. They did clearly lean more in towards the drama side of things, and whether that's for budget reasons or not, it did pale in comparison to me. I just felt like some of the things that I think of first when thinking of the game were exercised, and this was all in favour so that we could get more character talking moments. Now saying that, I think the last 2 episodes really went out on a high, and I think that the finale especially was really well done. I was worried when I saw the runtime that it wouldn't deliver, but it really did, and watching Joel walk through the hospital like that really struck a chord with me. I knew it was the wrong thing to do, but I was so glad that he was also doing it. The Last of Us is a complex show, and though it did falter at some points, I think this overall was a brilliant adaptation for what's a truly stellar game. Now if I'm scoring it, then the game for me is a 10 out of 10, with the show coming in at about an 8. Some brilliant moments in this, but yeah, to me it set a high bar early on, dropped off a bit, and then picked up at the end. So yeah, felt slightly short of what I was expecting, and if you haven't played the game, then I'm sure you enjoyed it way more than I did. I did still enjoy it, yeah? Don't kick off, don't start kicking off. I'm just saying that when the source material is so good, it's difficult to not be like, well, I wish they did this. You know what I'm saying, yeah? And if you love the game, I'm sure you'll have sort of similar feelings. Anyway, Season 2 next, and that's going to be a very interesting one to discuss. We will be back for that, definitely, but yeah, huge thank you for rocking with me for the last 9 weeks. I know there's been lots of great breakdowns out there doing really good things, and what I've tried to do with this to kind of differentiate them is make this the Obsessive Gamers breakdown, where we go as in-depth as possible, point out all the most minuscule stupid things, and yeah, people who are obsessed over this game, I hope you've enjoyed that too. Anyway, I'd obviously love to hear your thoughts on the season, the game, and also if there's anything we missed. Hope to see you guys back at the channel soon, and we're running a competition right now and giving away the Rocky 4K box set to 3 subscribers on the 15th of March. All you have to do to be win the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the show. We pick the comments at random on the 15th, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, we've got another Last of Us video on screen now. Can we forgive Abby? It's a big question, and definitely head over there right after this. Without the way, thanks for sticking through the video, thanks for sticking through the last 9 weeks. I've been Paul,